early 1800s, the U.S. Atlantic coastline was treacherous, especially in the Northeast, like Long Island, Cape Cod, or in the New Jersey area. The storms, the fog, the shifting sandbars made shipwrecks frequent, and this was challenging because millions of people were immigrating to the United States from Europe in that part of the United States. And so each year, hundreds of sailors and passengers would drown, oftentimes just 100 yards offshore. And there was no organized rescue teams for this shipwreck that would happen. A ship would wreck, and local fishermen would rally a few volunteers who might try to help, but they lacked the boats and the other tools to reach the stranded passengers and sailors in the rough turf. But one of the people was William Newell. He was a medical doctor, and he volunteered to be one of the people notified whenever a shipwreck came up. But eventually, the frustration of watching people die without being able to help them caused him to act. And so he petitioned Congress. And in 1848, Congress released funds to place surf boats, which were specifically designed to punch through waves to reach the shipwreck, and cannons that would shoot ropes and baskets so that you could pull people to dry land from the land out along the coastline. And these groups began to experience success. So much so that they decided to build these stations, these life-saving stations along the coast that would house the boat. And it was just a shack that would have room for a few devoted individuals who would keep watch over the sea. And as time went on, lives were being saved, which made these little shacks famous, and more people wanted to be a part of the work. And so they decided to enlarge and improve the buildings, and they added some comforts while they were hanging out, a kitchen to cook food and a little bit of a clubhouse feel. It kind of became the place to be. In fact, too many people wanted to be a part of it, so they started charging a small fee, a membership fee, in order for you to join this group of individuals. And over time, many of the members then lost interest in going out to rescue people themselves. Instead, they hired people to do it for them. I mean, one day a large shipwreck took place, and the members were having too much fun enjoying themselves to do anything to respond. Now, there were a few core group of people that still cared about rescuing, so they left and they would go down the coast a little bit, start another life-saving station, but over time, the same thing would happen there, which is part of the reason why you go to the coast today, you see yacht clubs and not so many life-saving stations. I mean, this story illustrates a tension that we all face in our life, but especially in the church. The tension is that the gravitational pull of life is always towards comfort, not calling. Don't get me wrong, we all want to be a part of something significant. We want to know that our life matters. We want to feel like we're contributing in some life-giving way, and when we're stuck somewhere, we want our lives to improve, to get better, but when opportunities come up for us to step into change or to be a part of something significant, many times we flinch. I mean, you hear the benefits of getting into shape, right? We know, like, oh yeah, I'm going to get into shape, and then an opportunity comes up, and the heaviest weight that we experience is the weight of the front door going into the gym. Or like we want to get out of debt. We want to set up our finances for future success. And when you're given an opportunity to take Financial Peace University, a class that we offer to help people experience financial freedom, or some other help, it's like, I'll put that off. We want a better marriage. We want our life at work to be better. We want better friendships. But an opportunity to join a group or to get help or to talk to someone, man, the pull to comfort is strong. So if you've ever felt this tension, me too. Welcome to Cedar Creek this weekend. Whatever campus you're at, whatever device you're watching us on, if you're one of the men at Toledo Correctional tuning in, it's a privilege to be able to spend some time with you each weekend. In fact, those of you physically here, will you just put your hands together to welcome the men at TOCI and people watching online? This tension is part of the reason why we are limited in experiencing some of our hopes and dreams. And I think this tension is also incredibly defining for many churches. I mean, over time, the pull of those within a church always moves towards those who are already here. And I mean, Christians mean well. We mean well. We want more good things. We want things that are going to help us, and oftentimes it's at the expense of what it takes to reach those who aren't here yet. And so here's the truth that I want you to remember for your life, but also for church. It's the bottom line, is that you can chase ease or impact, but not both. You can pursue a life that gets easier and more comfortable, or you can chase your calling to step into impact. But I'm just going to be honest with you, you're probably not always going to experience both. There may be moments, but you can't do them together. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated our 30th anniversary at Cedar Creek, the first weekend in October. And what our story is full of are challenges that we've experienced along the way. And you heard 30 years of living out our mission, 30 years of chasing our calling. Here's the warning, is the longer we exist, the more important it is to remember this. The more difficult it is to stay focused on impact, the more tempting it is to want more comfort and ease. Lifeway Research, I just saw this week, they're a Christian book publishing company. They estimated that in this next year, 15,000 churches will close. 15,000. How does that happen? Well, I think part of the reason that happens is because of this tension. We start to lose sight of Jesus' final words that he gave his followers. Acts chapter 1, verse 8, he says, these are Jesus' words, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere, in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And so notice, where does the church get its power? From the Holy Spirit, yes, but also from living out your purpose. And notice, Jesus didn't say they. He didn't say that group of people. He said you. You will receive power. Who's he talking to? He's talking to everyday, ordinary people, fishermen. We're talking like average Joes like you and me, or Jills if you want to be a little more inclusive. But he's not talking to the religious specialists of his day. Like, it has been God's plan from the very beginning to involve you and me in his rescue mission. People are shipwrecked spiritually. They're drowning, and we have an invitation to be the life-saving stations in our communities. We've been rescued to be a rescuer. But the gravitational pull towards comfort is strong. And I think that gravitational pull will ultimately cost you, it'll cost us impact. And I don't want that for us. I don't want that for you. And so God is inviting us to turn the world upside down, but it's going to take a movement of people devoted to pursuing God and the impact that he wants to make through us. Last week, we talked about how the first century church started. And one of the defining features of the first century church was their life-changing devotion. We read about it in Acts chapter 2. It says, all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. Devotion for this group of first century Jesus followers was not about their intention. It was not about their desire or hope. It was about the direction, the way that they were applying or living out these things. They devoted themselves. They were all in. They were living out what? The apostles' teaching. What the disciples heard from Jesus, they were passing on to this first century group of believers, and they were applying it to their life. They weren't just listening to preaching, they were living it out. They were also devoted to fellowship, to serving one another. They were also devoted to joining together in unity and humility around Jesus' body and blood. And they were also devoted to praying for one another. And the result? Each day, the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Each day, more and more people rescued. So God used this ragtag group of people, turning their life-changing devotion into world-changing action. That's what I want to talk about. And in order to do that, we need to fast forward from this moment, the start of the church, to 20 years later, 1,000 miles away from Jerusalem, across continents, cultures, and religion, where these devoted Jesus followers influenced devoted Jesus followers who arrived at the capital city of Macedonia called Thessalonica.
Welcome to Thessaloniki, or in Latin, Thessalonica. This is the courtyard where the agora, or the forum, where you can kind of see some of the columns that would have been stationed over here. This would have been a public gathering place, but also the city heart, the heart of the city, where a lot of the influencers and leaders of the city would have gathered. What you see here are four doorways that were the entrance to an ancient theater at about the 2nd century, and archaeologists underneath that, it was built on top of a 1st century like courtroom essentially. And so this is the gathering place of Acts 17, where Paul and Silas make their way to Thessaloniki. They start sharing about Jesus, daily gathering or weekly gathering in the synagogue to talk about how Jesus was the Messiah. And this is also where that mob took place in the book of Acts. It's so cool for me to see the places where the scriptures come alive, and to be reminded that everywhere the Apostle Paul went, he went with a singular focus to preach the gospel, to introduce people to Jesus and the life-changing adventure with him. He is one of the individuals who turned the world upside down, and we get to be a part of that same movement of Jesus-believing world changers today.
So there's somebody here today that's like, I don't know that God wants to use someone like me. Maybe it's the first time at church in a while, or maybe it's like there's a pattern, years of whatever. The story that we're about to step into is of Paul, a Christian killer. Like, it was his calling, initial calling, to eliminate Christianity, and God showed up in his life in a powerful way. If God can use Paul to turn the world upside down, he can use you. He can use every single one of us. And so I want to review that story where people allowed their life-changing devotion to turn into world-changing action in Acts 17. I'm going to read through it, and then I'm going to talk about a few things that I think can help guide us, that can help us chase after impact today. Acts 17, you can follow along in a Bible if you want. I'll have the verses right here. It says, when Paul and his companions had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a Jewish synagogue. As was his custom, Paul went into the synagogue, and on 3 Sabbath days, 3 weeks, he reasoned with them from the scriptures, explaining and proving that the Messiah had to suffer and rise from the dead. This Jesus I am proclaiming to you is the Messiah, Paul said. Some of the Jews were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, as did a large number of God-fearing Greeks, and quite a few prominent women, women married to Greek leaders in that community. But other Jews were jealous. So they rounded up some bad characters from the marketplace, formed a mob, started a riot in the city. They rushed to Jason's house in search of Paul and Silas in order to bring them out to the crowd. And when they did not find them there, they dragged Jason and some other believers before the city officials, shouting, "These men have caused trouble all over the world, and now they have come here too." And Jason has welcomed them into his house. They're defying Caesar's decree, saying that there's another king, one called Jesus. So when they heard this, the crowd and the city officials were in a turmoil. This turmoil, just for context, the reason that they're worked up is because Rome had given them permission to lead themselves, to let local leaders take care of themselves. They're like, as long as you maintain peace and, of course, pay a little tribute back to, Rome, you can pretty much do what you want to do. And now this riot that had broken out was threatening. If word got back to Rome, they'd just send their officers in and take over. It wouldn't be good for anybody. So they made Jason and the other believers post bond and then let them go. I mean, it's a story that you can read about in Acts 17, and I think a lot of times we see some of these stories and I'm like, I don't know what it has to do with my life today, but there are 3 distinct world-changing behaviors that I think help us chase impact over comfort. The first thing that you see in this story is courageous expansion. Like, how did Christianity get to Thessalonica, 1,000 miles away. It took Jesus followers chasing after their purpose, chasing after impact. It takes courage to go to new places, to reach new faces. This means it takes growing and mature Christians to reach unreached people. It takes growing and mature Christians at Cedar Creek to accomplish our mission. And so Paul, Silas, and others were stepping into a new community to introduce them to the story of the one that saves us all. Where do they get this idea? To go to new places. Well, they got it from Jesus. I mean, Jesus' last words was their first priority. Look at it again in Acts 1:8. Jesus is instructing his followers, you will be my witnesses, telling people about me, where? Everywhere. And then Jesus tells us where to start, in Jerusalem. Jerusalem, for his followers, was where they were at that moment. For us, it's where we are now. Essentially, it's your home. So those of you that are parents, especially parents of young kids, your Jerusalem is literally your kids. Jesus is saying, be my witness to your kids. Have spiritual conversations with them. And we as a church, through our app and other resources, love to come alongside of you and help equip you to do that. As a church, each campus is situated in a community. That is our Jerusalem. You, each campus, you are God's life-saving station for that community. And so we need to stay focused. We need to have our eyes to the sea in each of our communities. What's it going to take to reach people? That's what Jesus is talking about. But he didn't stop there. He also said, you're going to be my witnesses throughout Judea, which these terms may not mean much to you today, but Judea is the province that Jerusalem is in. It's the region. And so for us as a church, that's Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. God may decide at some point to expand our direct influence beyond the region. But right now, we have a role to play in the region that we call home. And that's not all. I mean, the disciples at this point, they're like, okay, Jerusalem, Judea, primarily Jewish. That makes sense to us. You want us to tell other Jewish people about you, the Messiah. But the next thing that Jesus said caused them to pause. He said, you'll be my witnesses in Samaria as well. Samaria is where the Samaritans lived. And the best way for me to describe them is they're half Jewish, half non-Jewish, half Gentile. And this made the pure Jews not really respect them a whole lot, which made the Samaritans not really respect the Jews a whole lot because of their history. Essentially, 1,500 years before, there was like a divide in the kingdom, and so they divided where they thought the religious holy sites were. Even though they had the same ancestors, they started living different kind of storylines, which bred distrust, disagreement, really disgust between them. I mean, it's first century bigotry and racism with an intensity that would probably make most of us blush. I mean, probably the best context for me to put this in for us today is Ohio State fans versus Michigan fans, okay? You just don't really like each other. Or Bowling Green versus UT. Or Cleveland Browns and winning. They don't seem to be synced up. $42 million for 8 different quarterbacks, and only 2 of them are actively on the roster today. I have no idea what's going on there, but Jesus essentially is like, hey, you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in the region, and you're also going to go to those people not like you, the people that you don't really like. Jesus is like, they matter to me too. And not only that, you're going to go to the ends of the earth, which for them meant into the Roman Empire, into the very empire that was oppressing them, into the empire that worshiped idols, that was full of pagan practices and all sorts of things that made them sick to their stomach, right? I don't think you and I fully appreciate the tension that this statement caused Jesus' followers, because Jews prided themselves on not being associated with those unclean Gentiles, right? We don't listen to that music. We don't watch those shows. We don't celebrate what they celebrate. And now Jesus is like, I actually want you to go to them, love them, serve them. Tell the world about Christ. Great commandment, great conduct, great commission. This is what Paul was invited to do. And he knew that impact is going to push us out of our comfort zone. It's going to require courageous expansion. And you can read all about the church's struggle with this in the book of Acts. The book of Acts is an honest telling of where they make ground and then where they get stuck and divided and conflict, because the gravitational pull is always towards comfort. But here we are in Acts 17, and Paul is a man on fire, converted on the Damascus road, and now on a mission to tell the world about Christ. He's on his second missionary journey into modern-day Greece and into parts of Rome, which is going to result in 16 churches, 4 major cities, 12 small towns in 3 years. 3 years, 16 churches. And notice, I want you to pay attention to his strategy. Every new city he stepped into, he ran the same play. What did he do? As was his custom, Paul went into the synagogue, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the scriptures, then explained to them, and then proved to them that the Messiah had to suffer and rise from the dead. So where did Paul start? He started with reasoning with them. The word in the original language is where we get the English word dialogue today. So that's back and forth. One of the things I love about Paul, you see it again and again and again, is he sought connection before correction. He built dialogue, relationship, found common ground in order then to explain, connect dots, and then ultimately push and prove, help push them closer to their faith in Christ. He didn't always start here, he started here. And I think there's a movement of people, Christians out there, who are like, you've got to be bold and not be afraid to offend people for your faith. Well, yes, I do think we should be bold. And no, I don't think we should be afraid of what people think, but let's not just make being a jerk the strategy for reaching the unreached. I mean, Paul built connection before correction. Jesus did the same thing. I think we should too. Why? So that we reach the unreached, so that we dialogue with them. I mean, there are a lot of Christians and churches out there that talk about people who are far away from God. I think we should create space to talk to them so that we can introduce them to Jesus. And where would Paul start? In the synagogue with Jewish people. 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And then after he had an opportunity to do that, you know what he did? He actually expanded and went into the marketplace. He went into the culture, the agora, the forum, to do the same thing. Dialogue, explain, and then prove. He was constantly looking for ways to expand courageously the mission of the church, and so are we. A few months ago, we added service times on Sunday to a few of our campuses to open up 3,365 seats on Sunday. Why? To reach more people, to expand. Because that's part of our mission. And here's the thing, there are some people who are like, I don't really like big churches. I don't know, big churches. Well, let me just warn you, you're not going to like heaven very much, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of people there. It's not just going to be you and your 50 friends. So get used to it. Part of the reason we open up seats is because we're married to our mission, the Great Commission, introducing people to Jesus and the life-changing adventure with him. We are married to the mission. Where we are open-handed is with our approach, our methods. We're going to take risks. We're going to try all sorts of things to reach people in the marketplace, dialoguing with them in hopes of expanding the people who know him. That's why we do things like Halloween Weekend coming up next weekend, or at the movies. Our Christmas service is a lot of fun. We've got KJ from the Savannah Bananas, first weekend in December, who grew up at Cedar Creek, who's going to share his story. These are invite opportunities. And here's the thing, if we stay focused on our mission, if we keep growing the way that we have been the last 3 or 4 years, we will be a church of physical attendance of 15,000 in 5 years, which is cool, but the problem is we don't have enough seats for that. So are we going to chase what's easy, or are we going to pursue impact? It's like, God, where do you want us to expand? I mean, this is part of the reason we have a group of people in Lima right now building a core group in hopes, in faith, that maybe God will create an opportunity for us to open a campus in Lima, Ohio, part of Northwest Ohio. If you're interested in being a part of it, text Lima to 419-419-0707. We do second Saturday serves. We have groups that are meeting there. They meet on a fairly consistent basis to pray for the city, and they're going to be hosting at the movies this November at a YMCA to continue to build the core group. Why? Because we're going to pursue opportunities to courageously expand. And our hopes is that core group builds to about 100, 150 people. At that point, we can begin looking at renting spaces to potentially open a campus to expand even more. This is why we look at every dollar that's given and go, how do we maximize it to reach as many people as possible? This is why we're open to mergers with other churches who want a renewed mission and impact in areas where we currently aren't reaching people. I mean, we were close to buying our 7th campus location in the Toledo area, and at the last second, it just kind of fell apart. And we're like, okay, God, I guess that's not the spot where you want us, but we're open. We're always open. We're looking for opportunities to expand. Is it easy? No, because the gravitational pull towards what's already successful and comfortable is strong, but we're going to keep chasing impact. This is where you come in. I would love for you to join us, because if we're going to reach more people, courageous expansion will require more dream team members. It'll require more people that are growing and maturing to reach the unreached. We serve every generation, or 9 generations here, which means we are looking for dream team members from every generation. If you're a teenager or young adult, man, I was standing in the lobby here at Perrysburg and just seeing young adult after young adult come in. I was like, come on, let's go. I was at student worship night on Wednesday. I spoke there and I saw teenagers singing their hearts out. And I'm like, you're going to be the church in not that distant future. Lean in. And those of you that are older, and you're like, well, I don't know that I have much to give. How old was Abraham? He was 100, which basically is God's way of saying, if you're not dead, he's not done with you, okay? So don't be afraid. Lean in to the purpose that God has for you. We are going to courageously pursue expansion, not for our credit, but for the glory of God and the sake of his mission. But in order for us to do that, it means we're also going to have to learn how to lean into the second thing that you see in the story, some risky hospitality. Risky because it feels uncomfortable. Hospitality is essentially when you create space for others at personal cost to you or your preferences. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of the name Jason mentioned as a hero of the New Testament, but he's really the hero of this story, not Paul and Silas. I mean, notice, when the mob was upset and they were looking for Paul and Silas, where did they go? They rushed to Jason's house in search of Paul and Silas in order to bring them out to the crowd. Why did they go to Jason's house? Because he was hosting Paul and Silas. How do we know? Well, when they didn't find Paul and Silas there, they dragged Jason and some of the other believers from his household before the city officials, shouting, "These men who have caused trouble all over the world have now come here, and Jason has welcomed them into his home." He was providing space, risky hospitality, not just for Paul and Silas. He was likely hosting the church. He was creating space for others at probably personal cost to his preferences. If we're going to change the world, if we're going to chase impact, we're going to need to get a little more comfortable with risky hospitality. At our weekend service, how do we make this as welcoming as possible for anyone to encounter the life-changing message of Jesus? Like, how do we make it as welcoming as possible for every guest? One of the ways that we do that is through what you could call our marketing. It's what we title our series. We will pick titles that are designed to create conversation or get attention, especially for people who don't attend church. And so lean in with us with that. It's why at the weekend service, we'll explain what we are doing instead of just assuming that everybody knows. Because we know there are people who are brand new here. I mean, I talked to a guy who hasn't been in church since he was a teenager. He feels like something's missing in his life. I want him to feel welcome and like he's included. It's why we play artists at the start of the service that aren't always explicitly Christian, but the song speaks to attention, or the artist creates a connection with those guests who are like, well, I know them. And this takes creativity and work. I get it. Just like it does when you are hosting someone at your house. What do? You clean up. It takes creativity. You want the house to look nice and clean. We want the same thing. We want all of our spaces to look updated and fresh. We have the best message. We should have the best tools to communicate the best message. So we're constantly trying to update and upgrade the spaces that we are in. It's why we want our facilities to look clean and prepared. It's why we want greeters to welcome them, just like you would welcome a guest at the front door of your home. This is why your physical presence matters. You never know who's going to walk in and see you and go, I didn't know you went here. And suddenly the barriers are going to go down and they're going to be more open to the message that they're going to hear. So simple things like no holy huddles. You know what a holy huddle is? It's where you and all your friends circle together and you close out, not intentionally, but you close out everybody else. I mean, at the very least, just make it a holy you, keep an opening for other people. Say, hey. Like, another way to do this is to sacrificially park. Like, save the best spots for the people who are new or arriving late. So park far away from the building. Unless you're medically, you need to park close, that's fine. Park close. But the rest of us, we need the steps anyway. So park away. And you know where it's going to be really risky is weekends like this where it's raining. You're going to get a few drops on you. It's like, okay. Here's another way that we can create some hospitality. It's for those of you of parents of young children, especially babies. Man, I remember when my kids were little. I had 4 kids, by the way, and they still make all sorts of noises, let's be honest. But like when you're in a service and they start crying or fussing or whatever, here's what I'm going to ask is just take them out. Because saying shh to them doesn't help, okay? They don't know what that means. It's just everybody else just hears you say shh. And so whatever campus you're at, that provides a potential distraction. You don't intend it. We get it. But this is one of the ways that we're trying to limit the number of distractions that people have when they're hearing about and potentially responding to Jesus. That's what risky hospitality looks like. You're welcoming others at the potential expense of yourself. The third thing that we see in this story that if we're going to chase impact, we're going to need to think about is the radical generosity of the first century church. Like you got to ask yourself, how did Paul and Silas get there? Someone invested in the mission. People gave financially to help them travel, move, go to new places. I mean, in Acts chapter 2, these believers would sell their property and give it to the church. They shared what they had. They responded to real needs and spiritual opportunities, radical generosity. Then fast forward 20 years. So not only was Jason a radical host or a great host, he was radically generous. I mean, think about it. The angry mob is hunting for Paul and Silas. And so where do they go? Jason's house. They drag Jason and his friends to court. They make accusations. These are the people who've turned the world upside down, and they're going to ruin our city. So when everybody heard this, the crowd and the city officials were thrown into turmoil, like this is going to ruin our city. And so they made Jason and the others post bond and let them go. Jason and his friends paid their own money. They put their own money on the line to protect Paul and Silas, to keep them from going to prison. They also protected the church, and they were ensuring the peace, that they're not going to start a riot and turn the city upside down. They gave personally, not only to host Paul and Silas, but to invest in the advancement of the church. Like, Jason, how long has he been a Christian? 3 weeks. Like, are you radically generous? Giving is one of the ways that we grow spiritually. It invites us to trust God in a pretty profound way, because the truth is God doesn't need your money to advance his mission. He owns it all anyway. So God isn't sitting up there like, oh my goodness, if they don't give, I'm going to be limited. He's not. God actually just wants your heart. He wants you to chase impact. And when you give, you're connecting your heart to him. You're trusting him by giving to him first financially. You're bringing it to his house, the church. And the bonus is it connects your heart to your calling, to kingdom impact. And so I would encourage you, for those of you that aren't giving, to start giving. But you can feel it in the room. When I say that, it gets a little tense. Why? It's tough, isn't it? Because the gravitational pull towards comfort is strong. And I think that's why of the 27,000 households, whether you're single, married, kids, household, each household, that's been a part of Cedar Creek this year, only 3,971 households have given something. That's 3 out of every 20 households. So if I'm here to help spiritually lead those of you that call Cedar Creek home, this is a spiritual growth issue. Where part of my job is to go, God, at some point you're going to have to, like if you follow Jesus, you're going to have to trust him. And this is one of the ways to do that. And it's been a spiritual growth issue for me. Like, am I going to trust God to be my provider? And here's the thing. The more I trust God to be my provider, not only does he show up and provide for me and break the dependency that I have on money, every single baptism, every single life change story, every single new seat that's open, I'm like, God, thank you that I got to play a direct part in making that happen. Those of you that give, you should feel the same way. Every life change story, God's used you and your trust of him to make heaven more full, to invest in something that will last for eternity. And so if God is prompting you to start giving, be responsive. Do it now. Scan the QR code. Like, it's between you and him. If you're new, there's no pressure. Like, if you're just checking it out, I'm glad that you're here. But those of you that have been blessed by Cedar Creek or you call this place home, maybe it's time to grow up a little bit spiritually. Here's how God uses your resources, just so that you know, to grow eternal kingdom impact. These are 5 areas that we are always dreaming about and asking, God, where do you want us to go next? And if you remember Jesus' instructions, these top 3 are our Jerusalem. How do we keep the projects at our campuses up to date? How do we keep them relevant and fresh and expanding and serving our guests? How are we investing in the next generation, the church of tomorrow, through internships and summer camps? And how do we make sure that they have a place in the mission and vision of our church? And then local outreach. How are we serving the physical and spiritual needs of our community through our South Toledo Medical Clinic, the largest student-run medical clinic in America, or our car care program that helps service cars of single moms or struggling families, or the Art Tatum Zone that's invested in Central City through Pastors Calvin and Christine Sweeney. Next year, we're going to be opening our Community Help Center out of our South Toledo campus, which is dedicated space to reach legitimate needs in our community. And when we're finished, we'll be able to expand the ways that we serve beyond the medical clinic today. I think a sign of a healthy church is when the communities that you're a part of, whether they go to church or not, or go, man, our community would really miss Cedar Creek and the difference they're making. Like, we just want to find ways to help our Jerusalem that we are a part of grow and be better off. We also, though, want to invest in our Judea, our region, which is campus projects where we talk about expanding campuses, adding new locations, and it's also our national outreach plan. We're always dreaming of new locations, but we are also nationally investing in church plants across the country. We are investing in ARC and Strategic Launch Network, which are putting churches across the country on an almost weekly basis. But we've also personally been involved in some of the fastest growing churches in our region and in the country. Elevate Erie in Erie, Pennsylvania. Thriving, growing church we helped start 10 years ago. Experience Church in Defiance, Ohio, a large impact church in our region. Rock City Church in Columbus, Ohio. We helped start that church over 10 years ago. Purpose Church in Goodyear, Arizona. These 4 churches average 11,000 in physical attendance every weekend and have seen 1,700 people get baptized just this year. Come on, somebody. You know that's good. That's kingdom impact. And you don't know this, but we are also investing in a network of churches in Europe that's seeing a revival take place. We're helping personally start another church in a month from now. And man, it's incredible. That's what it means to be on mission. And it's not just national. We want to invest to the ends of the earth. That's what international outreach is about. You've already heard about GCLA. We've been investing there for 20 years. We're building churches and medical clinics and after-school programs and houses. And the reason we love partnering with GCLA is because we feel called, in part, to partner with local churches Not just swooping in to build houses and do a few good things, that's good. But when you partner with the local church, they are God's life-saving station for their community, not us. They are the plan. And the truth is, we're not done. These are just some of the ways that we're chasing impact, trying to fulfill Jesus' calling to go. So will you join us? Will you lean in? I mean, can you see where God is at work? Let's join him in that work because God wants to turn the world upside down through the same types of people he did 2,000 years ago. Do you know how long Paul was in Thessalonica? 3 weeks, maybe 4. At the longest, 2 months. That's not very long to get a church started. I mean, after the riot and Jason and his friends posting bond, that very night the believers sent Paul and Silas to Berea. And when they arrived there, they went to, guess where? The synagogue. Same strategy. They left. I mean, this isn't long to start a church. And the truth is, this church should not have lasted. But a few months later, Paul writes a letter to the group of Christians there, a letter that we now call 1 Thessalonians. A letter written to help encourage and instruct this young group of Jesus followers. Notice what he writes in his introduction. You became imitators of us and of the Lord, for you welcomed the message in the midst of severe suffering. You chased impact over comfort with the joy given by the Holy Spirit. And so you became a model for all of the believers in Macedonia and Achaia. Paul is affirming their faith and their willingness to push past comfort into impact and calling. And this group of believers became an influential group for all of the believers in Greece. And not just Greece, but in the next verse to the rest of the world. He said, now the word of the Lord is ringing out from you to people everywhere, even beyond Macedonia and Achaia. Listen to Paul. This is what Paul's saying. For wherever we go, we find people telling us about your faith in God. A 3-week-old church stepping into their calling. Friends, I think that can be true of us today. God turned the world upside down through them. Man, I believe he can do the same here. But imagine if Paul would have been like, I don't know, man, it's too difficult. Or Jason, I'm just uncomfortable. I don't know. Like, what would their story be now? There'd be no impact. Friends, the same invitation stands for you and me to participate in God's calling or to chase a life of ease. Whether you realize it or not, your heart was made to run, to step into God's world-changing adventure. So I'm going to ask you today to drop the what ifs and the why nots, and instead of chasing after comfort, let's run after all that God has for us together.